armed struggle continues to exist. It's not something that doesn't happen anymore. There is still women and men that are willing and capable of carrying out acts of armed resistance against the British state. I can only assume, again, judging by history, that their focus would be manned or fixed British installations on the border.
It's over 20 years since the Good Friday Agreement brought a sort of peace to Northern Ireland, and 50 since the army was first deployed on the streets of Derry. But a new uncertainty hangs over the city. Could Brexit bring a return to the bad old days? Border checks, paramilitary rule and spiralling violence? Or can the city break with history and turn its political energies into a force for good?
Everything is always reported in a binary fashion. There are two communities. In my personal experience, there is a third community who don't identify with either. A community based on diplomacy, inclusiveness and non-violence. If you have a country that doesn't understand their own past, who are they?
Earlier this year, the city of Derry made global headlines when the brilliant young journalist Lyra McKee was shot dead by a group calling itself the New IRA. During a night of rioting in Cregan, a young man fired a handgun at police lines and Lyra was killed. This is Paddy Gallagher, a spokesperson for Ciru, a small Republican party, seen as the New IRA's political wing, something they deny. He believes a no-deal Brexit could provide a justification for dissidents to renew their armed struggle.
Well, obviously Derry is a border city. Throughout the years it has suffered greatly with being a border city. It's not only seen wide-scale struggle, but it also has seen ongoing deprivation. So whether we have a no-deal Brexit or not, that can only be seen as a continuing thing.
How significant is the opposition to a hard border here?
Well, you talk of a hard border. The fact is, it's a British border within Ireland. It's here, it's always been here. And truthfully, I think that British border will always be here until Britain leave Ireland. There's always been, judging by history, opposition to that border. As far as I know, there's been attacks carried out as recent as a number of years ago on border infrastructure. So while there is a hard border and that becomes a manned installation, judging by history, I can only assume that would be attacked. Armed struggle continues to exist. It's not something that doesn't happen anymore. There is still women and men that are willing and capable of carrying out acts of armed resistance against the British state. I can only assume, again, judging by history, that their focus would be manned or fixed British installations on the border.
Mm-hmm. And your reference to historical precedent, that's an attempt to distance Ciru from that action.
Well, Ciru is a political party. First and foremost, we're not engaged in any type of violence. But for me to give an analysis on the ongoing campaign of armed resistance against the British state, technically I can't actually give my own analysis or my own personal opinion due to new draconian terror legislation brought in by the British government in recent weeks.
In April earlier this year, we saw violence in the Bogside, and a young woman, the journalist, Lyra McKee, was shot and killed. Are you concerned innocent civilians could be killed again?
Well, the loss of any civilian life is always a concern. But as I said, Ciru is not involved in any type of violence whatsoever. We are a legitimate political party.
The New IRA claimed to be a part of this community, but when young men took that shot and killed that journalist, they destroyed their reputation here.
Well, I can't speak on behalf of the Irish Republican Army. Only they can do that, so I can't answer that question.
But in your opinion, does this undisciplined action from the New IRA show that it is a shadow of what armed republicanism used to be?
Well, if you look at the wider context of armed struggle, it's something that continues to happen. And the question itself that you're asking kind of borders on my ability, again, to answer it under current draconian legislation introduced by the British government. So I'd be hesitant to implicate myself on that.
Isn't it time to take the gun out of Irish politics? The border poll can provide a peaceful route to United Ireland.
Well, people are willing and capable of engaging the British state in acts of armed resistance. It is proclaimed in the proclamation that it is the right of the Irish people. If the Irish people see fit and are willing to do that, then that is up to the Irish people.
Paddy insists that his party has nothing to do with political violence, but the inside of Siru's office is like a shrine to the IRA.
A couple of replica firearms up on the wall as well.
Well, that's obviously an historical reference to the ongoing struggle and the fact that arms have been used to gain Irish independence.
You could see perhaps why someone might be confused. When we talk, our conversation that we just had outside, when we've spoken, you're keen to distance Siru from the new IRA and armed struggle, and in here, memorials to volunteers.
Well, it's an appreciation of the fact that men and women gave their lives for the ongoing struggle. Mm-hmm. We realise that struggle takes many forms, and obviously these people gave their lives for that ongoing struggle.
Mm-hmm. But you'd still maintain that Siru doesn't, there's no affiliation between the party and those carrying out violent armed struggle?
There's not. We've stated that multiple times. I've said it on many different interviews since the party has been formed.
Yeah.
It's also written within our constitution, which is widely available online.
This level of support for republicanism is to be expected from an organisation that has joined the IRA written on the side of its office. But what about the man in the street?
I'm more worried about what will happen in the city and what will happen in all the other places in the country, more than the border. Do you know what I mean? Because everybody's getting all hateful again.
You've seen it happening already?
Yeah, it's been happening ever since that there Brexit, ever since Donald Trump, ever since they started saying all this stuff about everybody's getting back into their tribes again.
It's going to go back to the troubles like the 60s and 70s.
No question.
No question about it. That's what will happen.
But it would give ammunition to the whole argument for, the dark days of Northern Ireland to resurface, and no one wants that. Absolutely no one wants that.
My mother lives in Derry. Anybody that knows where Derry is knows that the border is literally on the outskirts of the city.
And if we do leave and the things that started to happen before, do you think it makes a prospect of a united Ireland likely, or do you think things will stay as they are?
I think if we just snap into United Ireland just like that there, it's just going to reverse. This country's more or less 50-50. There's 50 people saying this side and 50 on the other side. We were all born here, do you know what I mean? So it's just going to reverse. One side's going to feel bad about it, do you know what I mean? What one side feels bad about now, the other side's just going to feel bad about then. So it needs to be sorted out, you know what I mean?
Nobody come on.
You need a plan.
No one come on at it. It's just.
You need to be a plan. You can't just go like that, do you know?
But around the corner in the Bogside, little has changed. And children born after the Good Friday Agreement are continuing traditions they don't fully understand.
Behind me used to be a busy community hub in the Bogside, Derry. But now, in a car park out the back, Republican youth are building a bonfire. And they're doing it to commemorate 50 years since a British Prime Minister sent the armed forces here. Mate, can you tell me why you guys are here building a bonfire?
We're here to build a bonfire, as we do every other year for the community and the children around here. We do it as a tradition. We do it for internment, the American internment, the Stab internment, and that's we're doing it for years.
Mm-hmm. What's the difference between the fire that you guys are building and what you're doing compared to what the Unionists are doing?
There's no difference. There's no difference whatsoever. They follow their fires for sectarian hatred. You know what I mean? So
You'd call it sectarian hatred?
Of course it is. Pictures, examples of Catholics, tricolours, the whole works. But that side of the community gets away with it. So we have to stand here in masks. They get away with blue murder. They get away with the whole works. Mm-hmm. So that's what the thing tells you. It's a one-sided police force. It's not welcome around these areas.
What's your message to the police who actually don't want you to be building this bonfire?
It's their issue around here. They're not welcome. Never have been welcome and never will be welcome. And they're not going to do one thing about the bonfire. Mm-hmm. Not one thing whatsoever. And if I try, they're going to come under sustained attack. Only thing we want for our country is blood and out. They will never have been welcome, and they never will be welcome. It's just the way it is.
If a hard border starts to go up, manned installations, those sort of things, what kind of response can be expected from the border communities here?
Oh, I couldn't tell you yet. Couldn't tell you.
End of.
End of.
End of. Whether these children have forgotten what they're fighting for or even ever knew, there is struggle and political energy in Derry. The city is wrestling with another anachronism, Victorian laws prohibiting abortion.
So we are trying to have a weekly stall to promote the decriminalisation of women and abortion rights and reproductive justice here in the north that we've been fighting for a very, very long time. And if we don't say loudly that this is what we want and this is what we need, that it should be a matter of healthcare and not criminal law, then we're pretty much afraid that it'll disappear and that it'll be crushed. It's not the way it needs to be.
We all know we've been lied to by politicians for a long time now on what the implications are of a hard border. I mean, for all of us who are involved here, you know, some women have different views of Brexit than others. Some would come at it from a very left point of view and would be in some ways, you know, agreeing with some form of disentangling from Europe. So it isn't, the issues are not clear cut in this. Austerity, you know, Europe has had an effect on austerity across these islands. But a hard border will have serious implications because we will not know what happens with our services and we won't know what will happen with the very few services actually that are already working cross-border.
There are two faces to Derry's recent history. One is the tragic murder of Lyra McKee, the other is the phenomenal success of TV comedy Derry Girls. Siobhan McSweeney plays Sister Michael in the show. She uses her high profile to support women's liberation movements and is promoting the upcoming Rally for Choice in Belfast.
The women of Ireland, and in particular the women of Northern Ireland, and especially of Derry, have always been to the forefront. And with regards to Derry Girls, I mean, that show is born out of lived experiences. And the show's USP is not only where it's set, but the idea that it's female-led in every sense. And that's not unusual once you're in it. It's unusual, the reaction to it.
On that point, tell me about the growing women's liberation movement here in Derry.
It's always been here. I suppose you're talking specifically with response to decriminalisation. Amendment 12 will be the amendment that will be brought in Westminster, who are finally stepping up and doing their legal duty, which is to step in cases of human rights omissions, which is what's happening here at the moment, in that the Abortion Act of 1967, I know my date so well, hasn't been rolled out here. So as such, the women and people who can get pregnant here in the north of Ireland are under Victorian law that hasn't been changed since, this is my lovely fact, I love it so much, since the invention of the light bulb. I don't think people in Britain understand how fluid the border is between the Republic and Northern Ireland. You have women who are working in the north and living in the south and vice versa. And you have services that are cross-border initiatives, and they cannot be continued if you have a border. They just cannot be continued. Practically, how do you have community nurses that work across the border providing the same level of care? You're just not taught it in schools. There is a huge gap in your knowledge. If you don't, my favourite saying at the moment, which I apply for myself, is, I don't know what I don't know. And yet even what I know is still more than my peers, highly educated, incredibly smart, wonderful people in London, the best people ever, and they don't understand. When I went to drama school, they didn't understand, coming from Cork, why I was using euro. They didn't understand why I needed a passport. These are fundamental things, and these aren't stupid people. So it is a lack of education. Then if you go down to why there is that lack of education, then I think you delve into a whole systemic political ideology which is still promoting the this little empire. There's this grabbing of identity, which is an identity that doesn't exist and never existed. And that's why we get these caricatures that are running riot in our political system right now. They're caricatures, they're not real people. Everything is always reported in a binary fashion. There are two communities. In my personal experience, and I may be wrong, I can only speak from my own experience, is that there is a third community who don't identify with either.
And I think that's growing as well.
It is growing, and they are a community that I would identify with, that a community based on diplomacy, inclusiveness and non-violence. I think Lyra was a fine example of that. Her intellect, her youth, her passion and her writing, that was really a voice. And the irony of her being murdered by a voice from old, that's of no use to me. That's be gone.
That evening, the Bogside Bonfire is lit. It's an annual event, and in the past there have been clashes with police, petrol bombs and riot shields. This year, an effigy of Soldier F, a paratrooper facing murder charges for the Bloody Sunday massacre, will be placed on top of the fire.
What's been happening here today?
It's a bonfire for Our Lady's Assumption, the 15th of August. So we light a fire every year to celebrate it, but at the minute it's kind of Catholic and Protestants. It's a bit cultural, like, you know what I mean? They burn our flags, we burn theirs.
What's the symbolism, do you think, of an event like this?
Well, for us it just shows we have the same rights as everyone else compared to the waterside or lower states being able, but also always getting into trouble, being arrested, everything being tucked away. This year they did more preparation towards helping us, towards keeping everything calmer and more peaceful between the communities.
It's our night, we're going to celebrate it, like, do you know what I mean? We're going to celebrate it in the way we want to.
And you're having a good time?
Oh, 100%, having a good time, hey. Cheers, big man.
Cheers, mate. Thanks very much, mate.
Cheers,
appreciate
thanks very
talking to you,
much,
mate. Thank you. Nice
Cheers.
one. Sam? Yeah.
50 years being the Battle of the Bogside, this is kind of celebration, memorial, just to say, you know, they stood their ground at the time, they held the barricades.
There was a lot of lives lost in the Battle of Bogside, look, and it's just, you know, they think they're going to get away with it. No, with Soldier F and all too, he's come back now in September, I think it is, to be charged, but he'll get away with it because they always do, you know what I mean?
In terms of Soldier F, you know, everybody knows Bloody Sunday was a massacre. The British Prime Minister at the time, David Cameron, did say that the victims were innocent. The victims were innocent. It means the perpetrators were definitely guilty. And so why it took so long, especially since '72, for us to find the shooters of an innocent person guilty? And there's been more than just Soldier F.
It's hateful, Vincent. Hateful. We live in Ireland. Ask the British police what they've done to the people of Ireland and then tell us if it's hateful.
Someone's committed a murder that they've been getting away with. And I think it's always been the British government's position to let these men die so they don't have to strip them of their medals. I don't think it's fair. I think, you know, they're guilty. They're guilty. Strip them now before they die. Let them die with the shame that they deserve to die with.
Tonight they burn a bonfire and rage against past crimes of the British state. The lesson in all of this, knowing when to stand your ground and when to leave. For us, it was made immediately obvious.
He's due to appear in court in September. Do you hold much hope for that verdict?
Hope for...
I don't give a fucking thing. I don't know. He's coming in the bog. What fucking rats? So where do they fucking put their bonfires all the time? And then they're fucking loudest cunts. We're put our bonfire, Soldier F. They fucking murdered fucking British Sunday. They murdered fucking people in the streets. So we just put about Soldier F, a fucking bastard. Welcome to Derry. Fucking British fucking scumbags.